I'm going to ask you one more time, Neil. Do you want to bring it in?
All right, welcome to Strength Hammer.
You knew I hit the record button. You knew what I was
Hope
doing.
You're having an amazing day and you're not as devastatingly tired as I am.
Right, episode 61, Neil. We are 8 episodes away from episode 69, which will be very nice.
Oh man, the 13-year-old boy in me just is gonna have a good chuckle at that.
Oh, that whole episode's probably gonna be a joke episode. We gotta figure that out. Yes. You were tired. I am recovered from being tired, which we'll talk about to get through this episode. But Neil, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Outside of the mass amount of drinking I did over the weekend, I've been sticking to my my strength. I guess you could call it strength.
Strength commitment.
Commitment. There's the word we were looking for. Yeah. So I've been running.
Nice.
So trying to get a little healthier again. So, and I've been sticking to it. And so I've been out for about 3 runs now. So sticking to it for me anyway. So it's been a couple days since I ran. I take it back. I ran on Saturday morning. So yeah.
That's not bad. I mean, like I said, we were talking before I hit record for the whole 30 seconds that we preempted this show. So, we 30 seconds to catch up and then our content. That's what we do here. So you were camping. Looked like a great time. Looked like an exhausting time out in the sun and the humidity. But yeah, I'm glad to see you're doing well.
Yeah.
I myself am doing well. I'm no longer sleep deprived. It took a 5-hour nap and some feedback from you, Neil, on your audio. No, it took a 5-hour nap and then 8 hours of sleep to get caught back up. But I feel good because I want to be well rested going into this week, which will be the Tacoma U.S. Grand Open. So that means, as everybody guessed it, next week there won't be a podcast or a blog either, because I come back, I land at 10:30 p.m., so I'm coming home and going to bed.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I realize my hair's a mess today. Look at this. If you're watching YouTube, you get to see it. If you're on Spotify, nope.
Oh. Big news today. NashCon pack came out today, so took a little look-see at that.
Yeah.
Can't wait to dominate people with my 2 lists because I'm usually so good at making 1.
The KOing Caradron Overlording. I don't know how to say this. Our little shindig between me, you, and Matt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how to say this. What do we name it?
Oh boy!
Like, what's a catchy name? Like, it's we've described it before. We're having a little 3-way battle throughout the tournament with our Caradron Overlords. We have a contract that we're all going to sign. Say pretty much.
Parlay. It's what's something you do on the high seas? That's like a small skirmish. I don't know.
I don't know nautical terms.
I do, but I don't have one for that.
That's fine. We'll figure it out. We're having our Caradron Civil War, I guess you call it that. Even though we're not fighting each other technically. Although I bet we will. One of us will fight somebody.
Oh well. It's probably a good chance we'll all face each other.
It's true. We'll be at the bottom.
Which actually would be ideal because someone would have to win that way. So,
watch, it turns into one of those things where I beat you, you beat Matt, Matt beats me.
Right.
So even if someone places higher, we're still going to dispute it, no matter what we do.
Right.
Yep. That's our life.
But
yeah, that pack looks good. I'm excited for it. Got to get the list in. I guess we have to August 13th. So we got time. We'll figure it out. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, life's good for me. I'm still wishing I was at every Taylor Swift Eras Tour concert that exists. So, speaking of which, we still got the pictures up on lock. So there we go. There's one for everybody right now. Um,
Almost had to bring my daughter down here to give you a little recap
mm,
of the Cincinnati one, which, by the way, they got an extra surprise song,
because of the
and
early
one of the
time, yep.
surprise songs was from the Redemption era, I guess you could say, or not Redemption,
Reputation.
Reputation. There we
Yeah,
go.
there we go.
Yeah,
There we go. Get it
yeah,
right now. Get it right or get
yeah.
off the show.
Sorry, Swifties are going to start DMing me,
Excuse
and
me.
not in
Yeah,
a good way.
I got DM you right now. Oh, yes. It's great. And also, she just released her Speak Now Taylor's version last Friday. That has been in my ears nonstop. It's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been played in my house quite a bit
it's
since then as well.
it's so good. I feel so sorry for Matt on the drive down the NashCon in a couple months.
8 hours. Yeah. Huh.
It's funny because we'll each put up with each other's music, but like it gets hard. It gets hard for each of us. We have to mix it up.
Yeah.
My favorite part of every road trip with Matt, while we're on this little intro subject, anytime we're driving for more than just a few hours, I'll just start playing with the radio, just to see if I can find the one Spanish radio station. And I've found a Spanish radio station in every state him and I have driven through. You'd think Indiana, that state, that
Yeah.
hellhole of a state, wouldn't have a single one. I found one for 5 miles.
Nice.
He's just looking at me. He's like, I don't know how you found it, but guess we're
There it
listening.
is.
Yep.
You applied the AM radio. Yeah.
Oh, that's good shit. But yeah, let's tell you what, let's start with the fitness. Neil, you've been running. That seems good. I saw a little
Yeah.
kayaking going on too in your photos.
Yeah.
So,
Been staying active.
yep. That's good. That's good. Any other fitness activities going on, or just like you said, just
Well,
keeping up with
today actually outside the kayaking, so there is at a campground that we stay at, there is like these inflatables in the middle of the lake, and so you have to wear a life jacket to get out there,
Mhm.
but these things are sizable. And they got
Yep.
like a rope like going down one side, and the thing's all wet, right? And so you have to hold the rope and like kind of like scale up this thing. And my heart was pounding after just to get the top. These kids are just
Yeah,
running up this
running up.
thing, and my 200-pound ass is like trying to pull itself up here on a wet surface. Was not as easy. And so yeah, oh man, I got the heart pumping a little bit up there. So
That's good.
launching myself off a 12-foot up in the air whatever the hell inflatable. So that was kind of fun, kind of challenging.
That's fun. The others are always like they're always extra, but they're fun. Yeah, no, personally myself, I'm doing 3 days a week still. I actually got a fourth day in this week because the wife didn't want to go to the gym on Friday with me, so we just like, all right, let's go Saturday. So it was an extra day, so I got a little arm pump in. It was great.
Mhm.
Outside of that, I guess I mean I never count it, but mowing my grass and my mother-in-law's grass and weeding the garden in the house. Let me tell you, when it's 92 out and 87% humidity,
Yeah, did a little bit of that myself this
it's
week. Yeah, I know all
it's
about that.
yeah, you're out there for 2 hours and then you're just like, oh damn.
It's a good day to get on the scale. You always look a little lighter after all that
Oh,
water comes pouring out of you.
oh yeah. But no, that was nice. I'll get hopefully try and get 1 to 2 days in this coming week. It's always hard with traveling for the GW stuff just because traveling takes a whole day, and then I won't lie, it's I'm terrible at working out when I'm traveling.
Mhm.
Unless it's on the East Coast time, because like my adjustment time period is just not. It's hard. I can adjust, but it's hard. So we'll see. I always make the attempt. I always bring the clothes. So hopefully I can get at least 2 days in, and one will
Yeah.
probably be a hotel workout. So we'll see. But yeah, onto the hobby end of things. I'll start with this one because I had the hobby commitment from 2 weeks ago. Well, yeah, whatever. We're a little off on this one as well, which was to get my daughters a cane to have all of their items from all their books represented on models. So I dug out all three of my battle tomes, which wasn't hard because they're right here to my left at all times. And made a spreadsheet, pulled them all out. There's some duplicates and such, so I didn't have to do anything twice. And then I also found all my army lists that I had for Daughters of Cain that I had saved. It was the bulk of them. I'm sure I've maybe missed one or two, but most of the time, because I played Kraith so much, I'm using the same artifact because we were required to use a specific artifact. But I found a few outliers back from the old GHB days whenever there was realm artifacts. Neil, do you remember realm artifacts?
I loved realm artifacts, and actually, most of the realm artifacts have some type of similar representation in the old Ren 4 books.
Sure do. Yep.
So
I found
from the
two.
Battle Across the Realms.
I found two of those, so I added those in as well. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, "What the hell is this?" And then I started looking it up, and I was like, "My God, how far we have fallen with this Age of Sigmar stuff, which is the GHB and no universe. Like, come on, where we go? Let's get back to it. Let's get back to what we were, you know."
Right. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see in a year.
But yeah, completed that commitment. Other hobby, I painted up a single Space Marine because the new Leviathan 10th edition dropped. So there was one model out of that box that I wanted. It was the Apothecary, and someone I knew had two. He graciously gifted me one, so I painted up for my Dark Angel Force, which I don't play. I've gotten a couple games into 10th edition. Did a giant Age of Sigmar narrative campaign to see if the Terathian Temple would survive or fall based upon a flashpoint from White Dwarf number 488. Sorry, I had to dig into my mind for that one. Which was between the Ogres and the Daughters of Cain. So this flashpoint, normally I see those and they're fun to read through, and maybe it's an idea for a game, but these ogres were on a warpath towards Harkron, and there's a list of places in the way. One of those places was the Brutos Hills. That's where I placed the Terathian Temple so long ago when they had their exodus from Gyran. I was like, oh, this is a good time. You know, we're near the end of an edition. There's this narrative thing that the ogres might attack the location of the Terathian Temple, you know, and not that it was known by anyone who wrote this flashpoint, but I was like, let's use it as an excuse to expand my narrative. So got together with the local barn crew. Mostly it was Brad and Alex. I was going to do a 3-game campaign, narrative campaign. The first 2 games, one was just kind of like a normal game, nothing too fancy. Second was kind of like a breakout. So Terathian forces were trying to get back to their temple, running across a huge table while the forces of Brad and Alex, the ogres, and some Gits. Not that the Gits were in the flashpoint per se, but we're not going to exclude people who want to play Sigmar. We're trying to pincer them together, so got through that way. And then the last one was a huge epic siege, which actually had most of the barn crew. So about 27,000 points we figured out at the end is what was on the board. It was a phenomenal narrative battle. Had a great time.
How long did that take you?
To be honest, 5 hours, not too long. Yeah, we probably got after it right around 7. Finished up maybe a little after once, maybe a little past that. But yeah, it was a great time. There's lots of like tricks. People really were starting to buy into the narrative end of things, which, as we'll talk about the topic, I was kind of shocked early on. Most a lot of my close friends didn't fully understand what narrative was. But I feel like they learned it through the finale of this. There was lots of double dealings. There was tricks. There was fun stuff. Everyone had their own goal, even if it went against, you know, what would win the game per se. And Terathi, she had, through her contact of Lanissa, my soulbound character, who was a member of the Anvil Guard Resistance, so had ties through the Cities of Sigmar type of people you'd expect, made a deal with some Kharadron overlords as a backup plan to get the hell out of there with as much as they could with Terathi in tow. And so while the temple surprisingly hung on a lot longer than expected, actually did end up falling by some lucky charges near the end, but safe to say plenty of the Terathian cult managed to make their escape, Terathi included, so they will rebuild. And we owe a debt to the Kharadron Overlords, which it's my Kharadron Overlord force, so it's a way to tie all my narratives together for some fun. So you'll see that in play at the NashCon when you see, like, I might put like a witch elf on the boat or something, you know, like, we'll figure it out. But it's fun to tie all my army narratives together a little bit more deeply by doing this. So
yeah,
more narrative to come on that. But yeah, that was the most exciting thing. And then I did decide finally on my old world army. Yeah, you saw it today. I was trying for the YouTube people at home. Or you can just go to my Twitter or Instagram down below, or my threads. I'm on threads now because whatever. But here on YouTube, you can't see it because my camera's shit. Terathi the Azurian era. She is going to be her high elf roots. I will tell that story succinctly. If you look at the dark elf story I wrote about her, you can see that I've updated it to represent fully that it's during the end times. So represent how the fall began. But plenty of room to talk about that. Excited for this. It's the only model I have unpainted currently, so that will be fun to drag out as long as possible, because until I get fucking base sizes, there's no point doing anything else with Old World.
Right. Yeah, it's one of my favorite conversions I think I've seen you do too. It's really nice.
I was happy. Like it was like one of those sudden inspirations. I actually had it in Kansas City as a potential, so I picked up the model and I let it sit for literally till today. So almost month later before I finally did it, but it worked out like it was in my head, so I'm happy for that.
Nice.
Outside of that, yeah, like I said, just playing lots of Warhammer lately, which has been fun. Not painting a lot, which is also fun, and listening to lots of Taylor Swift, which is great. Neil, how's your hobby?
Well, I painted, keeping on working on my Bubble Boys to get them ready for NashCon and everything. I did play a game with Dave, so that was good.
The David Roke.
And the Dave Roke, and of this podcast fame, actually, in the past. But if you look right here,
The Book
that
of
is
Grudges.
my Book of Grudges, and that is Dave Roke. Idneth Deepkin 62323. We're gonna have to strike that one off the books at some point because I did in fact lose that game. I was given first turn, and my Caradron are very fast. They could have got across the table and done some work. But I was a little nervous. I'm like, should I try? Like, he's got that big murder turtle, which I haven't played a lot. I'm like, it's just looks like a lot of stuff. I'm like, and I don't want to go right into the middle of his army and just have him come crush me. So I played defensively, and I still lost. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is my problem. Like, if I have an aggressive army, I have to be aggressive with it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the time, I do not do that, and so it's I really got to fight against that.
Fair.
So the next time we play, there'll be none of that holding back nonsense. We're gonna try and
All
get his
in,
ass
baby.
and strike that one out of the book.
There you go.
So,
yeah, that's the fun part about that book. Gives you motivation to keep playing that army. And even if you lose, at least you get to something to remember it by. You're like, I'm putting it in the book. It's fun for both parties.
Yeah.
That's great.
But that's pretty much the gist of it, really. So far, hasn't been a lot of hobby for me in the last couple weeks, unfortunately. So that's what video games will do to you.
That's fun. Yeah, I mean, I could give you a nice little God, Street Fighter 6. I'm Strength Hammer. This is Strength Hammer Podcast. I can give you some Street Fighter 6 updates, but I usually do this on my weekly blog post. It's going well. I'm having a fun time still.
Good. Looks like a good game.
It's so good. Oh, it's gonna be hard to be away from it for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there we go. That's the usual intro. So Neil, tonight's topic, I'm gonna let you lead it because this was kind of your baby.
Yeah.
So please, yeah.
I've been perusing the Twitters or whatever, and every once in a while I hear the term casually competitive come up, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to expand. I would consider myself a casually competitive Warhammer player. And so I want to kind of expand on that and take a look at that and see what both of us thought that meant, what it means to be casually competitive as opposed to just a competitive player, and what that looks like. So I don't know. Do you want me to lead this, or Chuck, or do you want to tell me first what you think casually competitive means to you?
Sure. Let me give you, I guess, my loose definition as I would see it from. So we didn't really talk too much about this, so this is all going to be off the cuff. So casually competitive means somebody who's going to bring a list that's capable of winning, but is going to have, for lack of a better word, maybe your darlings in it. You're going to have the things you like, because ultimately, while you're aiming to win, you're aiming to give a game where you could come out on top. If you lose, it's not the end of your world. It's not the end of your event. It's, I did my best and I came up short. Let's learn for the next game, see what I can do, but with this list. So, now that's not necessarily intentionally taking a poor choice for poor choice's sake. I know there's people out there that like to try and win with the worst things. And sure,
Yeah.
have fun. This is, I'm taking the list I want, no matter what, because I like them and trying
Mhm.
to win with them.
Yeah. I think sometimes casually competitive it becomes kind of a little bit of a dirty word to those who are competitive, right? I
Mhm.
think sometimes it kind of means to some people that this is just somebody who wants to win really bad, is a try hard, but is just really bad at the game. Um, and that's
Okay.
kind of why I wanted to touch on this topic. And so um, I don't believe. I mean, that may be the case in some instances. I'm sure it is. I'm sure those players abound. So when you start getting into the mid tables, I think sometimes that's where you start to find some casually competitive. I'd probably say mid tables to below in a five
It's,
game tournament.
yeah, and actually, if you go back to the conversation I just had with Scary on episode 60, um, that, I mean, that's the case. I know it's the case for Sigmar, and it's apparently the case for 40k as well. You know,
Right.
when you get to the very top, people are having a good time and super chill, win or lose. And then when you're at the bottom, it's the same thing. Granted, there's a
Mhm.
different focus, it's the same side of a different coin, but it's the middle where you can encounter that try hard type of person who wants to win
Yeah.
and thinks they're better than what they are and
Yeah.
can't accept not being that.
Mhm.
So, not that everyone there is that, but that's where they usually land.
Now, for me, what casually competitive is in my case, and I believe probably in many people's cases, is I don't have a ton of time to perfect the game aspect of it.
Sure.
Right,
Yeah.
I can get in a game maybe once a week if things are going great. The players that I'm playing are also around my level as well, so
Right.
um, I I'm not getting I also don't get the wide breadth of games in my local area that I would need to kind of expand. Like, let's say I wanted to get into like that fully competitive area. I don't have the amount of time to like go search out different opponents to learn different armies. I don't have the time to know all the rules for anybody else's armies. I barely know the rules for mine with the amount of time that I'm able to put into it. Um, and on top of that, it's kind of it's a go to war with the army that you have
Yeah.
thing. So
Little bit of
whereas
still
some
mania
people
coming
may,
out from you there. There you go.
what's that?
A little bit of still mania coming back in, bringing that back
Right,
in.
right,
And
right,
yeah,
right. So it's not intentional. Like I was talking to a friend of mine, Steve Mata, just actually a couple days ago, and we were talking about the Caradron Overlords points going up, and it's just like, yeah, it didn't affect me too much in my army because I don't really have Thunderers, and because Thunderers were the meta choice
right.
there for a little while. And I said, not because I'm above playing Thunderers, but because I have 10 of them and they all have rifles, and that's
Yeah,
that's not gonna
I have
that's not
tennis.
gonna do it.
I have 10 as well, and they have rifles. Minus, they also have the cannon, but that's because it's a dwarf.
Right.
I
And I'm
agree.
just not going out there and spending, $200 on more Thunderers to try and get them up to speed,
Right.
just so that I can watch the other ones, gather dust on the shelf. So when I build a list, I do build a list from what I have to be as hard and as competitive of a list as I possibly can. I'm not trying to take suboptimal choices, but I might just have
Yeah.
suboptimal
Well,
choices.
it's,
I may still go ahead.
I would say it's funny too because you and I are both the same. Like, we usually play the same small group of people, so we're facing the same armies. But in another way, that's also very good. For
Mhm.
instance, my love of Daughters of Cain means I play them more than any other army. So that
Right.
means all the people that I play regularly look at Daughters of Cain and know what's going on. I think to Matt when he went to LVO and he encountered someone who was running like a bunch of witch elves and stuff, and he said he literally looked at the guy and says, "I'm so sorry, what's about to happen to you?" Because normally it's an army you'd be afraid of. But Matt has played
Right.
me so much that he's like, I know exactly what I need to do to crush you, and I know you're not as good as Chuck because you're probably not playing as much as Chuck, as for
Right.
that specific army. And it was just like, oh, that's a boss move, and then Matt crushed him. But like,
Yeah.
there is a good aspect to that. I don't want to brush off saying like, oh, there is a good thing about hammering yourself against the same thing over and over again. That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to bring that up.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I can see that for sure. Um,
Yeah, we're gonna be really
Yeah,
good at KO by the end of all this. We're gonna see KO and we're gonna be like, "Fuck you, buddy. You're fucking dead.
I,
I know what to
I
fucking do
hope
against
so.
you."
I hope so. That's the goal, right? But I'm still averaging like a game every 2 weeks at this point. So I don't know how ready I'm going to be for this tournament. But so yeah, like I said, like I still want to win every game, and I think the casually competitive player, if we're talking like psychographic profiles,
Hmm.
and things of that nature, I would say that the casually competitive player tends, and I'm going to venture out here with this, probably tends to be more of the Timmy aspect, the person who wants to experience like a big moment.
Okay. All right. All right.
Um, right, like so that kind of lends itself, I would say, to being a little bit more laid back about the gaming experience. You want to see it. If that great thing happens, oh yeah, awesome. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's
Right.
not, it is what it is, as long as you went out there and you gave it the old college try kind of thing. So the other thing is, I would say, maybe on average the casually competitive player, probably mostly because they're not getting in as many games, are probably not as fast in the games, as I mean, it depends on who you are, but I'd probably say on average you're probably looking at somebody who's going to take a little bit longer to decide what he's going to do. In my case, I know that's the
A little
truth,
bit of
right?
a
So
analysis
I
paralysis going on.
right, I'll sit there in like a hero phase, and I'm like, okay, what am I? And once I got it, boom, I go right.
Yeah.
But like I'll sit there just looking at the board, where it's like, a competitive player, somebody who's played a lot of games, who understands exactly what's going on all over the board. It's just like, okay, we're gonna do this. I'm moving right here. I know exactly where I'm gonna deploy.
Yep.
Once I'm deployed, I see where you're deployed. I know exactly what my strategy is gonna be. I'm
Now,
gonna go do that.
Neil, I'm sure you've
And
had this too, but like the times where you and I have played like a very committed person, like a Bill Souza, uh,
mhm.
or a Roger or a Tom Guan, and like we do something, and,
Mhm.
it's from our own idiocracy where we're just like we, and
Yeah,
but we accidentally do something that makes him go, what do I do now? But like it's because that wild card thought process, because most people are going to do this based upon that because of how the game works. So
right,
always take
right.
that as a win too. If you ever, like
Well,
let's
yeah,
just
usually that is like a second of, oh, I didn't expect that, but this makes it easier for me, so that's fine. So,
probably, but never be afraid sometimes to just play the game and see what happens. Sometimes you gotta roll the
yeah, well,
dice.
absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, so that's kind of my take on being casually competitive. Is just like, sometimes the decision making is a little bit harder. You take a little bit more time. You still want to push. You still want to win the game. Like I've been like racking my brain over the list that I'm bringing to NashCon and everything, and how it's going to play out and what I want to do with it.
Right,
That's the other thing. It's a list that I built, right? And it's again with what I have,
right.
and so it's not going to be a meta list, which means we're not going 4-1 with it. I'm not.
Which is why we're doing what we're
Even if I was
doing.
very good at this game, the list is not going to be where it needs to be to go 4-1, 5-0.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
just not a
I'm
possibility.
I'm aiming to be above Neil and Matt. That's my
Right,
goal. And
right.
that could be third from the bottom, and I can hit that goal, and I'll be like, woo, yeah, and I'll be dancing like I just won the whole thing. I'll be like, screw your sword, I got this paper contract we signed, bitches.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
Yeah. So like when I see oh boy, like when I see things like chess clocks and stuff like that being bantied
uh,
about, that gives me one
yeah.
more thing to have to worry about during a game. That would not help my experience of the game. I'm sure it would help
I
my opponents. So, but
well,
I know this about myself. So I play an army right now that has like 3 boats on the battlefield. And
hmm,
I just have to move those. I used to play Soulblight, right? I think if you guys have been following this podcast, I got rid of my Soulblight army because
wasn't
I
what
was
you
still
wanted.
getting my games in. I've always got my games in under the allotted time, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like if I'm going to give you a good experience, I know that about myself. I'm going to take a little bit longer to think about things.
Yep.
So I'm going to play something that doesn't take a lot of, time in the movement phase. So
See, I get that, and I guess to touch upon the chess clock conversation, even though it's fucking tiresome over on the
yeah,
old internet, um,
yeah,
to me, it's always like, and I talked about this on another podcast. And like to me, it depends about
right.
if you want a chess clock or not. There's a lot of it depends. I mean, to me, everything in life, my answer is going to be it depends. Sorry, with the exception of a few things like, should you be a Nazi? No. No. Should you be a pedophile? No, you should not. No.
Yeah.
Like, very hard line on a few things for sure, but everything that's non-controversial in life is usually it depends as an answer from me.
Yeah.
But I have a chess clock over there for one reason on my table. If I ever have somebody over who wants to practice with it, like, sure. If that's the intention of the game, like, hey, I'm practicing for AOS Worlds. One, why are you practicing with me? Second, yes, I have a chess clock in case that's what you want to use to get practice. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Have I ever used it? No. It still has a little tag on the battery that I could pull it out to start it because I've never used it. But that's just because it doesn't fit who I am or how I play. I feel like I was in this casually competitive space for quite a while, probably from AOS 2.0 up until fucking Bounty Hunters.
Yeah.
Actually, probably a little bit into Bounty Hunters. Bounty Hunters broke me of it. Because there was, I'd still go to narrative events, I'd do all this sort of stuff, but like, I came to your event sometimes, and I came to push face when it was a competitive event, and I took best order one time, which was my highest accolade, I think, at an event, which felt good, and thank goodness Bill Souza took overall with his order army, which allowed me to win best order. But no, I pushed real hard, and I said I've done that before. I've gone to events where I push, but then I've also gone to events where I'm not concerned, but I still come out 2 and 3 usually. Based, that was like the second edition mostly. So I understand that space these people are in, but I also see how it can, through a couple of other friends, I'll leave their names out of it, that I've seen let that get a hold of them too much, and they get a little bit too into wanting to win, and it kind of consumes them, and I can see it's like they think they're having fun, and maybe they are for like a short term, but then they eventually come up, like they wake up out of it and are like, being too competitive while being casually competitive is not good.
Right. I think it's I think it's funny when like some people talk to me and they'll be like, yeah, I was talking to Steve the other night, and I was telling him, it's just like, yeah, I'm pretty competitive in pretty much every other part of my life. He's just like, yeah, it's weird that you're not competitive in Warhammer. And what's funny is I am. It just doesn't come across because I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose. But when I'm playing the game, I am absolutely playing it to win it, So it's just 75% of the time that is not going to be the case.
Well, no, I mean, and it's interesting, and you have to decide that as a person, like, where is your competitive nature? If it's in Warhammer, great, embrace it, have fun. If it's not, don't force it. But that also doesn't mean it can't change. Like I said, I was competitive for a good long while. Now it's the least thing on my concern. Like, I am 100% ready to go to NashCon with my list, okay, and go 0-5, and even lose out of the 3 of us, and go, that was fun. I had a good time, because that's my mentality now. Like my competitiveness is in Street Fighter, which is weird, but that's where it's at. So like, and it might come back eventually to Warhammer. We'll see, but it's.
I mean, we were chatting earlier, and I was sending you my list, and I was just like, yeah, the second one is a 2-drop. And you're like, woo, look at that. He's bringing out the battle regiment.
See, but here's...
It's not as if I'm not trying here. I am trying.
here's the thing, Neil. I want you to read the subcontext of how fast did you post those versus how fast did I respond?
No, pretty fast, yeah.
Okay, do you think I actually read your lists?
Oh, hell no. I know you guys don't read them.
Well, no. Okay. No. Us don't read them. Matt would read it. Cole would read it. Dave would read it.
Right.
I'm like, cool, that's what you want to have fun. Like, I'm not gonna read it. Like, if you're my opponent, like, this is gonna be the funnest. Sure, fine. Dave, not today, Satan. You can't knock me for this. The funnest thing for NashCon for me is people going like, here's my 2 list. I'll be like, that one. That's a cool one.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one I'm gonna land for. Or I'm gonna look at both and be like, okay, cool, your Fire Slayers, and hand them back. And they're like, did you see anything else? No. You got baby dwarfs with fire hair. That's all I need. Here we go. Let's go. I'll flip a coin, and that's the list I'll use.
I'm trying to decide. I'm like, my general like I'll go out like game 1 and just assume like game 1's going to be a loss most of the time. Again, that doesn't mean I'm not trying to play for the win, but I always know that if somehow I do manage the win in game 1, that means that is almost assuredly a loss. Number two. So if I would much rather go out and lose that first game and then go play with the people who are more on my level potentially than the guys who are climbing up that ladder
Yeah,
pretty
the
quick.
first two rounds is always the hardest because like that's where that split happens. Like the people who are competitive and put in the effort and the energy to be that top level. But yeah, you might run into them round one. See, I've done it multiple times throughout my Warhammer career, both competitive and narratively. So, but like I said, I always bring a list where it's like, hey, I'm gonna win or lose by turn 3. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Well, this is my Karajan army it'll pretty much be done after turn 1. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us have essentially like a 2 frigate charge in list. Be like, let's see what
right.
happens. But also,
So,
mine is full of Arcanauts because I have Arcanauts because for some reason I like
yeah,
Arcanauts.
yeah. My other list is just all gun haulers and ironclad, and then 9 of the engine riggers. And so it's going to be all just like run up in your face, shoot, 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 shoot. Ironclad charges in with that battering ram, and let's see what happens.
As long as we listen, here's the question: do you have the blow the magazine, great engine work, the one where you can blow up your ship and do
No, I
like?
do not.
Well, you should.
No,
You
I
should.
use the battering ram.
I know, but you gotta. If I'm going down, you gotta go in blaze of glory. But I guess I get it. I get it.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that one though is just like assuming you're losing, so you're just trying to just bring down as many people as you can
so
while you're doing that.
do you have the thing in your head whenever I think it was talking, it might have been the High Elf or Dark Elf episode where Garage Hammer Dave Whitehack was just like, I don't know why you'd ever take this because it's assuming I'm going to die. I'm losing models.
Right, right.
And it's just like I hear that still every time, even when I'm like I play Daughters of Cain, I'm like I'm gonna take Martyr
Right.
Sacrifice where I can bounce mortal wound back for every girl that dies on a 5-up. I hear Dave
Yeah.
going, but you're assuming you're gonna lose models. And I'm just like, yeah, but that's fine, Dave. Like I have to like mentally battle him in my head each time.
I'm right there with him. Like I'm like, if I've done something to the point where we're hoping for that to happen, something bad has happened, right? Like it's probably not going my way.
That's fair.
So
I get it. I get it. But, have you ever found yourself, I guess, like falling into the trap of casually competitive, where you lean a little too far into competitive, where you're maybe like taking the fun out of it, either for you or your opponent? Like I said, I know I have.
yeah.
So I'm just
And
curious.
that
Yeah.
usually happens with like certain opponents that I play all the time, right? It usually happens with my best friends, right?
Yeah.
So where my like I've had games where it's just kind of can get nasty sometimes, and those are usually with Dave because I
Fair.
play him the most, or
Fair.
have traditionally played him the most, right? So the people that I play the most, and I'm willing to bet you probably have a little bit of this with Alex.
Oh yeah,
but
him and I are the ones that I get it the most with. I don't know why. It's him and
right.
I, but like we get past it.
Everybody's competitive, like especially in this country, right?
Well, that's because we're all number
made
one.
on competitiveness, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it depends on who it is, and it depends like, is this person my like? Do I consider this person to be my level, like in the game, right? Like when I walk up and I play, name your tough crowd, gentleman or lady who's going to stand across from me at the table. When I play them, I 100% know this is not going to work out in my favor. However, when I play Dave, when I play Matt, when I play you, right, kind of at the similar level of playing at this game. And at this point, I expect to win, or I expect to be competitive at this point.
So you're
and
saying
so it can
there's
get a little hairy
chance.
at that point. Like that, at that point, I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm coming for the win here, guys. Yeah.
No, it's fair. That's entirely fair. I get that.
Yeah. I'm sure Matt had felt that in our last Brewhammer.
It's always funny too, because it really like exemplifies when you start having like the issues. Like even though we're all rolling average on dice, but like we always feel it's like slightly off. I remember when we were at the Adepta Won't, and I played Matt. I had my Drukari against his Custodes. I threw everything in, and he just bounced everything off, and I was like, haha, I'm in danger. But it's like he could not fail a save, no matter what I did. And but conversely, when I did the siege battle this last week, for some reason, and there's 8 people at the table, and it was mostly me. Matt joined my side for a little bit till I made a certain blood pact, but that's beside the point. But Matt was with me, but it was like me versus like 6 other people mostly, and then Matt had like the small section of this wall. to defend. And for some reason, everything was just average across the board unless it was Alex. If Alex rolled anything to hit me, I'm like, oh yeah, I need a 6. There's 8 6s, Alex, and he's just like, shut the fuck up. And it was like if for some reason just that night, my dice is like, I am not taking anything from you, Alex. Everybody else could do whatever they wanted to me. I was like, that's fine.
Right.
But Alex, it's just like, nope, you're just. And I was like, he had a horde of goblins that were held up by 5 Melusai bowmen for 2 turns, and he's just like, why? And I'm like, you could have retreated after the first one. They weren't going to do anything. They're in a tower, and he's like, no, I wanted to kill him, and it took him 2 turns to do it.
Yeah. That -1 to hit, +1 armor. It's nice.
It's good. It's good.
You're gonna find that out when you crash those boats into some people,
Mm.
unless you have them pop out. Yeah.
That's why you got to blow up the boats, do the mortal wounds, and you drop the bombs. It's all mortal wound spam. So what'd you get? No.
Oh man, I want people to shoot my boats. Please shoot my boats. Don't shoot the guys inside.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah, shoot the guys inside. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Now, I guess with that said, like I've changed my ways. I'm a recovering casual competitive player. Now, full on, just want to tell stories, just narrative wargaming.
Yeah.
Are you still casually competitive? You think? Are you still at that level?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely. And actually, like I was talking about, the better opponent I play, the more casual I get about the game. Like I don't turn into like the sweaty tryhard. I go the opposite way.
Like what can I learn off my opponent here? Like, yeah, what am I going to learn? Yeah.
I know what the study in futility is, so that it's easier for me to just fall back into like, okay, so this game is not going to be a W. So, how am I going to have like the most fun I can with this game, while still trying to give the other person a decent game as well.
Right.
So again, I'm not just going to fold it in, but I'm going to play them. But yeah, that's where I start to try and get a little bit into the moral victories and things like that,
Oh yeah.
So.
I mean, and really the only difference between that is with kind of what I do is I'm starting out with the moral victories in mind.
Yeah.
I guess like I find those like it is fun because I know the one thing I get to do during this whole event and be like, oh, what's your most recently painted model? Or what's your favorite unit on the board? And I can be like, ha 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 ha, die.
Yeah, that's
like I can do that.
Always
stuff.
Be afraid. Like whenever like Chuck asks you that question, just take your thing and slide it more towards the back of the board.
Yep. Exactly right. So it kind of brings me up a different point too, like what I alluded to at the start of the show. That kind of surprised me with some of my good friends that I play Warhammer with all the time. That not everyone truly understands what narrative wargaming is, I think. I feel like we've gotten away from that because let's be honest. I know GW is like that's the 3 pillars: there's open play, match play, and narrative play. Okay, first of all, open play, no one does that. If you're doing it in your hobby table, you're not doing you're guessing on stuff. Open play, sure. If you want to label it that, fine, whatever. That's a pillar of salt. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Then you have match play, competitive play, which is solid. There's pros and cons for match play out there for sure, because a lot of the shifts in the meta and points and rules will be around the competitive play because some people are going to find those things, abuse them until they get fixed. And sure, that could break some if someone's playing casually at home. If they find the FAQ and they have to, and maybe they use 5 Thunderers, and now their whole point is screwed up because now the Thunderers cost way too much because people were abusing them. Like they weren't abusing them, but they were abusive. That's a negative. But a pro is if there's something really egregious that maybe someone's stomping around their local scene, making people not have a good time, will get corrected. So it's still viable, but it's not broken. That's a good thing. So there's pros and cons to that, but also it's casual. So I don't know how many of those people actually look up FAQs anyway. So who knows? But narrative. Neil, if I was to say to you, hey, let's have a narrative game this Friday. I'll bring my Daughters of Cain for this narrative game. What would your first question or response be?
What's the story?
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, Neil, I need to defend my temple. Let's give that. I need to defend my Tarathian temple. I'm an Akshi. It's gonna be all no holds bars. I gotta throw out all my tricks to defend it. My endless spells and judgments, invocations are just gonna be active because this is my home territory. Like all the blood magic centered, um, that sort of stuff. What would your follow up
Yeah.
question be after that, or what would your response? Whatever that's
What's my army's role? Like, what is my army trying to achieve? What's my army's part in the story?
sure. It's to siege the castle. You could have your own, obviously, like reason. Maybe it's to capture as many of my heroes as possible.
Mhm.
Whatever. But like, I just need to defend my walls. That's all my goal is. You're rampaging into that.
Mm-hmm.
Not once did you do what every single person that I talked to about narrative gaming recently. Not a single time in this whole conversation did you do what they did every time. The first question they had.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think their first
How many
question
points?
was? Yeah, every time it's like, how many points? I'm like, shut the fuck up. No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. We're telling a story.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I get it to a certain extent, right? Like,
well, it's just I think it's been
but
beaten to
you may
people's
want
heads
to
so
know,
much.
like, yeah, as far as narrative goes, are we playing like balanced, or are we playing, is one force going to be larger than the other kind,
Right.
type thing?
But
So,
that gets discovered throughout the story. Through the narrative, we just worked out together the siege. Would you assume that you have more points or I have more points?
if it's a siege, what I would assume is that you have less points than the attackers, generally speaking, because usually the battlements kind of add to a little bit of that defense feature. So
Right, and
that'd be my assumption.
I've already clearly stated that I'm going to be powered up because I'm going to just have my endless spells out at all times. So I'm going to give myself other bonuses to make up for that fact.
Yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, and then even to the point where you lose a unit, it comes back on the back of the table edge. Like that's other fun stuff we can do.
Right. It's your classic, like your classic holdout. Like, see how long you can hold out,
You
kind of
you,
game.
you mean the male dream? Last
Yeah.
stand. uh,
How long can you hold off? Yeah.
yep, lone wolf style. But no,
Yeah.
it just shocks me because and maybe I took it for granted that people assuming what narrative is because I've heard it before. It's like, well, okay, it's just shocking to me because and also to that same point, I want to bring up the reason I bring up that specifically is because I bet in some way, like if we had Noah on, Tom Guang, Gavin, any of those just exceptional gamers, or the new Team American captain Sean, um, they would probably look at us and go after our explanation of competitive, casually competitive even, and they would say, "Here's why you're not understanding what it is."
Mhm.
I bet we're still missing that because we've never really functioned in that space specifically.
Yeah.
I think
I actually would love to get a very competitive person's idea of what casually competitive is to them and what their experience with somebody who would call them themselves casually competitive has been, because it'd be interesting to kind of hear their take on that too.
right, and because that's
So,
kind of like that's the melting pot. That's where we all end up. And even if you're hyper competitive or you're narrative, whichever side of that coin you're on, I think the casual competitive is like a nice meeting point where all those ideas kind of converge, and that's where like the blending begins of, I guess, that spectrum of play style.
because there's stereotypes on both ends, right? I mean,
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
Mhm. So, yeah, getting back to narrative, like if you look at, I think sometimes the official, stuff that gets produced recently, I'd say more in the narrative sections. Like if you go and you look at your big book, your rule book, and you look at the narrative section, you get your Path to Glory, right? But Path to Glory, you can play your Path to Glory game army in a match play scenario, right? They have rules for that.
Right.
The narrative games themselves have scenarios, and the scenarios are, they might be a little bit, they could be unbalanced, but they're not far off of like what a match play scenario is
Right.
most of the time.
The most I've seen is the narrative flashpoint we used talked about the defender having to choose where their forces are at, and then the attacker would blindly choose which location they're attacking, and that would indicate if you're even on points, if the attacker's 10% up, or if the attacker's 10% down. That's if you're sure we could have done 2,000 points. We threw that away. I threw that away immediately because I didn't care about that. But even still, it's there's a lot of thought, even in narrative right now, I think is being put into fairness, which means it takes away a little bit fairness on level of armies, which I get, but also I think it's also defeating the purpose of narrative sometimes, which is to tell a really cool story despite
Right.
major imbalances that could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, it's hard to shake, the whole like, I'm on the other side of the table, kill army. I play this game to take your army pieces away and win the game, by doing whatever the win condition is, right? So, just remembering that like every unit you lose, every unit that kills something else, right? That needs to
Mm-hmm.
play a role or has to play a role in the story.
Well, I
So,
look at myself even on that on 40K. When I play 40K, even in the new edition, the first thing I don't care about doing is objectives or secondaries.
right.
So my narrative is playing the most bare basic competitive version, which is just 2,000 points versus 2,000 points running at each other. Like, so I tell my opponent, I'm like, hey, you can put down objectives. I'm going to ignore them. I'm doing this because I'm just doing what I want to do, which is like
I'm
tell
playing
my
Murder Elves, and
yeah,
you
it's
need to die.
yeah, you might win, but you're gonna die.
Uh-huh.
Which is a different can of worms, but and that's where maybe that casually competitive, like I said, it's a good place to jump either way on, but also embrace while you're in it. Like I said, you're in that phase, you're embracing it. I have left that. I'm in my new era, so I'm embracing that. Doesn't mean I'm not going to shift back in and try to be competitive. Like, there's a good chance, Neil, if we pair off each other,
Oh,
probably
man.
you and Matt are gonna be the only two people that I could pair against and be like, it's fucking on, boys. Like, let's
Oh yeah,
go.
man. I'm
Yeah.
I'm going all in, man. You're gonna see the ugly face for that one, right?
We'll be mean mugging for 2.5 hours to get through that game.
Oh my god. It's gonna be like 5 minutes till dice down.
You son of a bitch, you slow played me.
I'm down like 20 points, but I'm just still trying to eat back any point I can get against you.
Nah,
Too funny.
I think it's definitely a good topic of what is casually competitive and what do you consider casually competitive.
Right. As a casually competitive player, um and this is impossible to do. It's an impossible thing. But I'd love to have a tournament, or play in some kind of tournament where it's like, how you have like in Street Fighter, right? You have your different, as you get better at the game, you get paired off with people who are more your level,
Right,
right? So you have different ranking system, right?
right.
It'd be nice to have like a ranking system where you would play in a tournament with people that are more of your caliber. Like you've got more like a range, and I know that's impossible in Warhammer. And
Yeah, you'd have
I'm
to
not even sure. I'm not even sure if I experienced it, if I'd want it after
yeah,
it. But
you'd have to self-evaluate yourself on that. Which
yeah,
is hard to
yeah,
do because everyone thinks they're better than
right,
what they are.
right.
I guarantee you, if it was out of 5 stars, I guarantee you'd probably take someone like Noah and he'd be like, I'm 4.
Yep.
He just won
Nope.
LVO and he'd be like, I'm a 4. I'm like, no, you're a 5.
Yeah.
And he's not trying to play down. He just truly thinks he's a 4 because it's also very personal how we view our skill levels.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, so
but
have to have some kind of way, and then who wants to like go through a ranking system all this, right?
yeah,
Like it have to be more of like a, what do you consider yourself as kind of
right.
thing, right?
And like I said, it's funny. And the Street Fighter is a good mention because on the ranking, whenever you first go into a ranking, it asks you,
Mhm.
are you a beginner? Are you a
Mhm.
rookie, amateur? Are you
Mhm.
experienced, or are you a pro? It asks you which one do you think you belong in,
Yeah,
and you pick it,
yeah,
and that's where your placing matches go. And if you say I'm a pro, you're getting matched against people who are diamond and mastered, like the highest level. You're gonna get your
right.
ass beat all the way back down real quick. So so you want to be honest, so you can actually get evaluated correctly, and then move up the scale, and then you move up and down. So
Right.
it works. It works in Street Fighter because one, it's a video game, it's all automated,
Mhm.
and two, matches are a minute and a half at most.
Yeah.
So like that's why I'm okay being competitive in Street Fighter personally because if I lose, I'm only losing for 3 minutes as opposed
Yes,
to 3.5 hours.
that's a fair assessment too. It's
Yeah,
not your entire weekend. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Plus, also, I
Mhm.
don't know how I could tell the story in Street Fighter with with a character that has preset moves and stuff.
Right. Unless you can custom make them, but
Oh, you can mod things. I've seen some mods. I wish I didn't see some mods. Oh my god, there's mods. People
no,
are
I'm sure. I'm
so
sure you've seen some
horny.
mods.
There's
Yeah,
way too many horny people out there. They need to stop.
yeah. It would be like an interesting thing, though. I wonder how it would ever work if you did have kind of like a casual tournament versus the like an Adepticon, right? Like you're able to block off 100 slots for a casual tournament and block off 200, 300 for the competitive tournament, right? The competitive now. So, but
Well,
I don't
see,
know.
you say that, but like I said, everyone sorts themselves pretty quickly. I think that negative connotation of like the tryhard people.
Uh,
Because here's how those people get sorted. Because like within the first couple rounds of any event, it sorts itself to where you
right,
belong. Um,
right.
the
Two
re-
rounds. I think it takes 2 rounds. Yeah.
right. The reason you have those people those tryhards that eke through is because there's people like me and there's
Mhm.
people like Bill.
Right.
They play a tryhard plays Bill, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
They're just going to lose. They're not good enough as a player to beat that person. Even if they
Right.
brought the same exact meta list, it's like, no, you're going down, buddy.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
they encounter someone like me who just doesn't want to deal with that shit,
Mhm.
like if I'm not in the mood to call out every single piece of bullshit, I'll be like, all right, I just want to get through this game and get on to the next one because you're a
Yeah.
dick.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
just let them go
Yeah.
up. And that's why they always filter up there. It's that's how they get filtered
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then tryhards
Yeah.
play the tryhards, and then I'm a fucking TO and I have to fucking deal with them.
Yeah.
And all their stupid asinine questions
That's where
is,
all the questions come from.
oh,
Yeah,
every
that's
single
exactly the
time.
spot.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, yes.
yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
just how it sorts.
And as a casual guy though too, like it's almost like when I win a game, like I'm happy I win a game, but then I'm also like afterwards I'm like, oh fuck, I got to go up and play somebody.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
But no,
No, it doesn't. It
yeah.
isn't. We have our moments, and sometimes those moments with some games that are less than fun that you have, they stick with you sometimes, and you dread that. But I will say they are few and far between. So
Yes, and like I said, I currently refuse to have those ever. So if I encounter anybody of any skill set, if I see where the game's going to a negative connotation, I'm just be like, cool, I'm taking my whole army and I'm gonna kill that unit next.
yeah,
And I'm gonna kill that unit next, and that unit,
hmm
and that's my game plan. That becomes my whole game plan
yeah,
because I don't feel like trying to do all this nonsense. I'm just trying to get these little victories of that unit's gone and that unit's gone. Because usually by doing that, I feel you'll probably usually beat a lot of the tryhards anyway. Because they're not expecting to like, oh, why is your whole army shifting to my left flank?
right,
Oh gosh. And then they're like, I gotta shift back over, and you're like, all right, whatever. I'm just gonna keep chewing through this, and then they take them off their game plan. But that's beside the point.
yeah.
Now it's
No, the moral victory route. Yeah,
yeah, take the moral victory and go, all right, I'm just gonna. And like I said, NashCon actually kind of, since that's our next event, kind of supports that in a way because there's who killed the most generals, who killed the most
right. Yeah.
the new android heroes. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah,
Yeah,
the wizard guys.
wizard
Right.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So NashCon leans into that a little bit anyway. Like you could show up and be like, "This is my game plan. I'm gonna kill as many generals as possible," which is cool.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of fits the concept of what me, you, and Matt are doing with this little KO battle.
Yeah. Speaking of trying to kill generals,
Yeah.
I did kill Dave's general. Dave's
Ooh.
general was an Achillean king, right?
Yep.
What do you know about the kings? What happens when they get next to a lot of units? Do you know?
They pass a lot of buffs around and kill your army.
What happens is they get 2 extra attacks for every unit within 6 inches of them. I don't know if it's
Oh.
an artifact that does that or what.
I think it's
I don't know
command
what
trait. I think it's command trait. Yeah.
command trait. Okay, so
Or maybe command
now
ability, but
imagine, if you will, a fully stocked boat of Caradron overlords that has 1, 2, 3, 4 units inside. The
Mhm.
boat counts as one, and then there's a further gun hauler next to that boat.
Mhm.
So we're up to 6. Okay. Um, and
Okay.
imagine this thing has a 14-inch move and can run and charge. And oh, by the way, it's going to strike first too. And that
Mhm.
hammers into the side of your boat with something like a 2-3 damage attacks.
Yep.
To the tune of about I think he had 18 attacks when he hit me.
Ooh, okay.
Not counting the goddamn horse.
Yep.
Jesus Christ. So I learned really quick, you know what? The moral victory route of trying to kill the general actually sometimes is the actual victory route. That you take.
And I was just looking on my phone as you're talking about that. Something to keep in mind with the new General's Handbook and the new FAQs in mind and battle packs. They only have 7 wounds, which means we're now going to have to be within 12 inches to shoot them if they're next to a battle line or a unit of 3 or more models. Or no, is it ignoring the mounted? Might ignore the mounted. Hold on.
He's mounted.
He's mounted. He does count as mounted. Never mind. Shoot the shit out of him. Yeah, you guys see he's mounted. I was just looking like, oh, he's only 7 wounds, but yeah, no, he's mounted, so he's ignoring that. So we're good.
Well, in order to bring all my big guns to bear anyway, all my boats need to land outside of 9 inches and just start leveling shit anyway. So it's all good.
Hey, shooting the heroes is never a bad idea anyway, so can't be too wrong.
Yeah. But of course, your deep can, you have to shoot the closest one anyway, so that's not always the option anyway. So found out I thought I was actually uniquely positioned to try and take out that army, and it turns out because they get cover on that first turn too, that the alpha strike option on them is not the best. But
it has been
probably still the one I should have took.
See, it's been a long while since I've brought shooting against Ideneth armies that I've played. I'm usually just a combat army, so I keep forgetting about that. You have to shoot the closest.
Yeah.
We'll see, that'll be exciting. I'm in trouble. I should probably try to get a few games in.
I'm in danger.
I think Alex is having a little prep event, so I'll get a few games in there. But,
I would have liked to. My wife is going to be out of town, so I got the kiddos, so that was going to be a no-go for me. So
that's fair. But Neil, anything else you want to cover with casually competitive people?
No, that's all I wanted to really talk about a little bit. Just I'd love to find out what other people think about it, and if you think that I'm way off base on what all that is, or you disagree with something I said, I'd love to know about it. Just pop in the comments down there. I'd love to know what you guys think.
Yes, please do. I'm curious too, and I'm curious if you're out there and you play narrative. Do you worry about points first, or do you worry about the story first? Like, what's your how do you go I guess how do you go into a narrative game? What's your style? And then if you're competitive, let us know what we got wrong too, as far as from your viewpoint, because that's also very interesting. And maybe we'll talk about it next time. But it's going to be a couple weeks before we talk. So like I said, I'll be flying out to Tacoma middle of next week, and I'll be gone for about 5 days. So if you're going to Tacoma, I will see you there. If you're not going to Tacoma, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at strengthhammer_ or strength_hammer. But links will be in the description below. Neil, anything you want to say to the fine folks before we depart for a few weeks?
Actually, just from what you said there, I think there's one extra thing just to add about casually competitive gaming. It does seem like sometimes the best players, the most competitive players, are the most casual players too, because they know how to beat you and there's no stress.
That's true. That's true.
That's another way you can be casually competitive.
Yeah,
is just be so good that it's not you're not worried about anything.
You're so good, you don't have to worry about competing till the last 2 rounds at most.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm not gonna do any commitments this time, just because I'll forget about them by next time. Neil, any commitments from you? Hobby or fitness?
Hobby. I got to finish those Bubble Boys. They gotta start getting done. So
there you go. Actually, I will commit. I'll commit to 1 game of Caradron Overlords, or at least read through the book again. One of those 2.
Play the game.
I'll try. I'm busy.
I get it. I get it.
All right. Everybody take care. Stay Stormcast strong. Happy hobbying. We'll see you in a few weeks.